to Accelerate Your Wealth, a podcast by Rebecca Robertson, founder and director of Evolution Financial Planning. We hope you enjoy the show, and please feel free to leave us a review. It really does help. Feel free to connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn and Instagram, or head over to www.rebeccarobertson.co.uk or our sponsor, Evolution Financial Planning, for regulated advice on www.evolutionfinancialplanning.co.uk/podcast.
Welcome, Jenny. I almost want to say, welcome, Jenny, this is Jenny from the block.
I am.
What, a block of flats?
No, just in general.
I could just make a joke then, but I'm not going to. I'm going to try and be sensible. You know, why? Why be sensible though, Becky? Right? Why do that? Welcome, Jenny Wright, from Money and Pension Service. Thank you, Jenny, for joining me today.
No problem. Glad to be here.
So, tell me about your job with Money and Pension Service.
Yeah, so I'm the Regional Partnerships Manager for the Money and Pension Service across Yorkshire and the Humber.
Wow.
And so I have spent my entire working life in the financial services industry in one way, shape or form. And I've been really lucky to work in the corporate sector, third sector, and now in the public sector as well. And everything I've done in my life in terms of work has sort of culminated in this role that I've got now at the Money and Pension Service.
So what's your normal day or week look like for you?
That's the beauty of this job. It is so varied and there isn't a normal week. So at the Money and Pension Service, I'll just explain a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, please do.
So we're an arm's length body of the Department for Work and Pensions, which means that we're sort of sponsored by the government. We're a bit of a quango, if you like. And what we want to do is help people make the most of their money and pensions. And that goes right through from pocket money all the way up to pensions. And we have a UK strategy for financial wellbeing, which we're now in year 4 of. And that covers five really challenging areas around money. And we'll perhaps pick up on that.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, but the Money and Pension Service is formed of 3 organisations that you might have heard of. We all came together in 2019 as a single financial guidance body. Dropped that name relatively quickly because
it sounds rubbish.
Yeah. So we changed it to Money and Pension Service, or MAPS. But we brought together the Money Advice Service, Pension Wise, and the Pensions Advisory Service. So Money and Pension Service is the business-to-business side, the business-to-business name for the organisation, but we reach out to consumers, individuals, employers via our Money Helper brand. And everything that we've got is free. It's impartial guidance and information. And we really want to help people talk about money as much as possible, break down those barriers, those taboos and that stigma around, being embarrassed about talking about money. We want to educate people, give them the tools to make decisions themselves, or at least go out and find more information about that, what they're wanting to do.
Definitely, love that.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here.
Perfect. So what does your role do? What would a normal week look like?
So I engage with individuals, employers, organisations, doing a lot of work with the NHS, local authorities, combined authorities. And at the moment, I'm really sort of focusing on employers and how they can support their workforce around financial wellbeing.
Okay.
So that might be as simple as having a little bit of signposting on an email, a staff email, or it might be embedding a full financial wellbeing policy into their overall health and wellbeing strategy.
That's so important, I think. That's so important, because normal everyday people, they go and Google money and pensions. It's like a rabbit hole, right? You don't know where to start, and you're not necessarily going to come to the top because there's somebody else paid higher that's not impartial. And maybe not a regulated website, for example, so you don't know actually how credible it is.
Exactly.
And they could find umpteen amount of information, which could be wrong. Whereas if you go from your employer, also those people that aren't looking, and they're the people that you really want to capture. How do you get the attention of people that aren't listening to this podcast, for example? It's the other people, and through the employers, and large employers, I imagine as well, are crucial. So talk to me a little bit about the financial wellbeing element that you talked about. It was 4 or 5.
So 5. So the UK strategy for financial wellbeing covers children and young people to start with. So what we really want to do is support organisations helping young people. So that might be the education system. So we've got toolkits for teachers to talk to the class about money. That's
amazing. I didn't realise that.
Yeah. And we've got a toolkit that people can use in schools to get information around how they can plan lessons, etc. And we're just about to deliver some teacher training.
That's amazing.
We've got some parenting resources as well, a program called Talk, Learn, Do, and that starts sort of talking to really young children, gives you sort of games, things to think about, tools there to sort of engage with your young person around money. So we're moving through from the children and young people piece. We've got a section called Credit Counts. So we want to drive up information about safe forms of credit. So community finance, credit unions, and raise awareness about loan sharks and payday lenders, etc. So we want to support people getting affordable credit. And we know that more and more people are using credit to fund their day-to-day living. So, food, utility bills, etc. And we really want people to go to a safe place for that credit if they do need it. Then we're moving through to Nation of Savers. So this is sort of a really key piece for employers to get involved in. So having a workplace savings scheme is really good for building financial resilience back. Financial resilience is so important for everybody, particularly from a mental health perspective as well. 100%. So we're encouraging employers to engage with, building societies, banks, providers of payroll savings to have that in place that people can access through their work. And that might make people, if they're saving through their salary before they get it, there's a really good chance that they will maintain that savings. And we've done some pilots.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So then moving on from that, we are the largest funder of free regulated debt advice in England. And we work with various partners that you'll have heard of, Citizens Advice, for example, and we put extra capacity into the debt advice system. And again, trying to break down those taboos around asking for help and getting the right sort of free help as well. That's really important. And again, you mentioned Googling things. To go via our Money Helper website onto a debt advice locator tool, which will take you through to a local free regulated debt advice provider, rather than you running the risk of randomly getting somebody and then it's a scam, or they're charging you for stuff that you don't need to pay for. No. So we've got the better access to debt advice part. And then lastly, we've got Future Focus, which focuses on pensions, long-term care, thinking about that a lot earlier on in the process. And as part of the Future Focus element, we've got Pension Wise still that supports people around making decisions about their pensions. And also we've got pension guidance specialists that are on the phone available every day to have, those silly questions that you think, I daren't ask this question because people will think I'm silly. We're there all day to answer as many of those questions, because we want people to know about this stuff. And we really
they're not, are they? Often they're actually not silly questions. Absolutely. They're really important. And so many times I had a client yesterday say to me, I'm really sorry, probably I'm not asking this question correctly, or this isn't making sense. I know it's probably down to the fact that I'm just not financially educated, or something of that kind of language that she used. And I said to her, no, actually, this is a really fair question. I need to go and check this, because it was a graph. We did an example of a pension projection, and I used one graph back when I was doing later on in the conversation about an attitude to risk profile. And it was one of the profile tools that added in your profile based on this profile, your projections would be X. And then I did in a different tool where I stipulate the rate of return. And she's like, well, it's so different from the last one. I said, I'll read the return rates. So I sent her the graphs so she could see the two of them, and she still didn't get it. And I said, no, what you're asking is really fair. Let me go and check. And I found out that the rate return on one of them was 15, 8 and 0.2, and mine was 5. So there was reason why there was such a disparity, and it was a fair question that she was asking. It was not a stupid question at all.
So we've got those 5 areas which touch on all elements of, like, you know, every sort of lifetime decision: getting married, having children, retiring, ill health, divorce. We've got all of that covered on our Money Helper website. But across those 5 challenge areas, we've also got cross-cutting themes. So we've got mental health, because we know that people struggling with their mental health struggle to manage their finances, but also, particularly now, people that are struggling with the finances, then that has a massive impact on their mental well-being as well.
It's sort of chicken and egg, you know.
Just circle. And then the other one is gender. So we're really keen to support women around their finances and get more women engaged in making decisions around their finances, understanding what things are, and also planning better for their future, and taking responsibility.
I spend my day every day normally talking to women about exactly that. And it's there's so many it's getting easier. That is getting easier for a lot of younger women, but I think it's still very difficult for the sort of, I would probably say 45 and above. And it's still a tricky subject. So I'm not going to try and have a rant, because I hate having a rant, but it is my own podcast, so it's great. I can say what I want to say, but I know you can't, because you're here on official capacity.
Yes, you go for it.
But I'd like to talk about, how does the money and pension service work when in next to like regulated advice? Now, I don't have an issue with the money and pension service at all, and I don't have an issue with money coaches giving sort of guidance. What I have an issue with, because all of those so far that I've mentioned are enabling people to make decisions, and that's what I'm all about. Because without enabling someone to make decisions, they procrastinate, they get stressed, nothing gets done, nothing gets decided. Without that, you're delaying your potential future. So what I do have an issue with is that the regulator put a lot of, as you well know, stress, fee, pressure on regulated people like myself, that I will be very careful what I say on my podcast, for example, to that extent. I wouldn't say I'll do this or do that. But I know there's people that, I don't know whether they call themselves money mentors or money coaches, or in the online sort of stratosphere, and they will say, go and do a pension and do a FTSE 100 tracker. Now that to me is advice. It's not guidance. But they're all over Twitter, they're all over TikTok, they're all over Instagram, and the regulator is doing nothing about it as far as I can see. But what the role of what you're doing, your team are doing, and the company that you work for are doing, is really important. What do you think the regulator thinks about that? And what does the money and pension service think about any of that? Like, do you get involved in any of that non-regulated sort of?
No, we don't get involved in that. So again, the regulator is an arm's length body, like the Money and Pension Service, and as an organisation, we are really keen to stress that everything that we sort of share with people is free. It's impartial, and it's guidance or information. There is no advice. So even if somebody rang up our pensions technical specialists, who are all qualified around pensions, and some of those are ex-financial advisors, They are just getting sort of signposting information, facts, and factual stuff around their pension. And like you said, it enables them to make an informed decision potentially, or go on and talk to somebody like yourself and get that regulated financial advice. But what we also want to do, and perhaps support that sort of differential between regulated advice and guidance, if you like, is we have developed a money guider competency framework. We work with a lot of organisations, so local authorities, housing associations, NHS, social prescribers, who on a daily basis speak to their tenants, service users, patients about money. It comes up in conversation.
Yeah.
And a lot of people now are sort of asking for help. Again, in a healthcare setting, the financial side of it might be the thing that's making them poorly. So what we're looking to do is support those people working in those jobs to have the confidence around what they can say. So this is information, this is where you need to go to get the help. I can't tell you what to do, but these people will be able to do that, or they'll be able to point you in the right direction. So what we're looking to do is sort of get people signed up to the Money Guider framework and work their way through that. There's a City and Guilds accreditation attached to that, so it's all online. Sort of do it in your own time. But that gives you knowledge around all different things in financial services, so pensions, protection, savings and investments, all of that stuff. And it educates that individual so that they don't then make mistakes when they're talking to the tenant or the patient or whatever. Right. But as part of that as well, we've got a Money Guider network, which is really good peer-to-peer support. So all those people can go up in the sort of 3 sessions a month, which is free learning for them. But they also have peer-to-peer support sessions, so they can all talk about it and the issues that they're coming across. And then we would develop further training around those issues that they're raising. So we're wanting to sort of, I don't want to say standardise, but I can't think of a better word.
I like that, and what you're saying makes complete sense. I would rather there be a framework than what I see at the moment as in none at all, because I think then people can very much make a mistake. And I'd much rather see a money coach or a money mentor or some description, any kind of coach really, that could potentially talk about money in conversations like you mentioned. If you're coaching somebody around past trauma and it means that they're not making decisions and they're not paying their rent because they don't know if they can afford it and they're getting stressed, you want to be able to enable that person, to help that person. Not that I can't speak to everybody. Financial advisors, we can't speak to everybody. We've all got to help each other in the right way, right? So I think I think that standardizing is almost a good thing, because then I'll be, if I can see on the person's website, well, at least I know they've had some form of training, and more importantly, they know what not to say. So there's a line between I won't say anything because I don't know, I'm scared, to saying too much. And actually, I mean, I suppose that can be a problem for the consumer, but unfortunately it's all too late when once that's happened. And then there's a space in the middle, and I think in which case, because financial services, we're so regulated, why shouldn't that at least have a standardized? Why shouldn't it?
And it's it's proving very helpful for people, and giving them the confidence to have those conversations rather than shying away from them with the individual sat in front of them. And again, that individual that's in crisis potentially needs some clear guidance or signposting, and that's really, really key, I think, to sort of head more crises off at the pass, if you like, to sort of enable people to start the process. And again, that might be just saying to people, you've got debt, there's no shame in that, but it's really important not to leave it, and not to sort of pretend it's not happening. And these are the people that you can talk to for the correct advice. This is the telephone number you need, or I can, we've got a virtual contact centre now with regulated debt advisors on there that we can put people through to straight away, or arrange callbacks and stuff. So there's loads of work that we're doing. It's so broad, and that's why, like I said at the beginning, I love my job, because it's so diverse and so interesting, and I get to meet so many random people and have weird conversations all about money. And it's fascinating. And like I said, I've always worked in finances in some way, shape or form. So everything that I've done helps me to have those conversations as well. And I bang on about it like nobody's business. Just want people to feel comfortable talking around money. And I use personal examples all the time to try and get people to open up as well, and see it as a normal thing to do.
What's the personal experience that you've gone through that you're happy to share on a podcast?
So well, I mean, there's loads, but the key one for me, and it's around budgeting, and I am very anal when it comes to budgeting. I know if my bank account balance has changed by a few pence, I have to check to see what's happened with that. So I'm all about the budgeting. But recently, last year, my husband was made redundant, and we knew that it was coming, and we'd got a plan and everything, and he set his own business up, but he didn't do a budget plan. He said, everything's going to be fine, it's all right, don't worry. And I suggested that it would be a good idea to make a plan, and he didn't. And long story short, the money that he'd got to one side started to run out a lot quicker than he anticipated. It's very difficult setting up your own business.
Definitely.
It takes longer to get that.
You don't know what your pay cycle is, you don't know what your marketing cycle is, you don't know any of it.
Exactly. So after about 4 months, we had a conversation, and I put him in, as you do, and I put him in front of the Money Helper budget planner. He went through that and went, oh, that's where it's all going a bit awry. And now we have a regular monthly sort of chit chat about where we are with the budget and everything. And I think that's a really healthy thing to do, because it means that I don't sort of carry on regardless of doing what I used to do. We make decisions jointly about the money. But another thing that we've done, and we've done this for a long time, is we have a spreadsheet, and we put all our sort of savings, all our pension plans, all our life insurance, etc., on this spreadsheet, so that any one time we know where we are in terms of our money. And if anything happened to one of us, it would be easy to have that sort of snapshot of what we've got, and just saves people trying to trawl through information and things. So I think there's a couple of things there that I do, and my daughter, bless her, I'm always sort of having conversations with her about money, and but she's picking up on that, and she's actually now started working in financial services. So it's
okay. You didn't completely put her off then.
No. Well, I had put her off for a bit, but now she's down with that, and she loves it. So and again, it's that sort of helping people to understand stuff, and supporting people through difficult times. So yeah, I just think when I'm doing my webinars and things, if I can share personal stories, it makes it more
real.
Yeah, more real, and people think, okay, well, she's approachable, she's been through something, challenging, and it's not a preach.
We all have, though. Like, if we all really are honest about it. I did a podcast this morning with Hetty, who's a bookkeeper, and she's not a bookkeeper. She'd hate me for calling her that. She's not a bookkeeper. She's a qualified accountant,
right?
And what did she call herself? Like a finance practitioner, where she goes into businesses and helps them manage their business. And we talked about cash flow. We've both had cash flow problems before.
Yes.
I talked about the fact that one year while my profits increased, I didn't save enough tax. I saved enough for the previous tax year, the equivalent, but not in the increase of tax. So then the next tax year, I'm having to save for that tax year and some for the bill that's coming up. So and I'm a financial advisor of 20 at the time, like 20 odd years. It happens to all of us. But I think I think that the thing is that I've done a lot of personal development on myself. I've had to grow and be the person that I am. And actually a lot of the decisions that people avoid, or they react to things more than anything. Their reaction is avoidance, or their reaction is overwhelm, or the stress, or the mental health element that you talked about. It all really comes down to how they were brought up around money and what's gone on with them and their mindset. And I mean, I was out at the weekend and I was with a group of girls, and they're absolutely lovely. But I was a couple of weeks before with another group of friends who financially in very different places, and the conversations were just very, very different. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it does sort of show that we might be all in the same sea, but we're definitely not all in the same boat.
Definitely, that's right.
And knowing how to react to situations so you can get yourself into the next boat or the bigger boat or whatever the calmer seas, whatever it is you're wanting, is knowing when you're reacting badly, knowing how you need to deal with that trauma or that past effect. Or and once I stopped taking it all so personally, and it was just something, it was like filling out a form. It was just something that I had to do. You don't get so emotionally stressed about the outcome, because it is what it is, right?
But again, it's like this, burying your head in the sand is the last thing you want to do, because then that issue gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you think you can never get it sorted out. But there's a lot of people out there to help, and I sort of mention around, if you are struggling with your mortgage provider or your utility provider, there are rafts of people, whole departments that are there waiting for your phone call to talk to them, and they will support you through that process. And there's various things that they have to do if you tell them that you're struggling. So my message to anybody is sort of speak up, find the help, and make a start, because once you've made a start, you just feel like that weight's gone off your shoulders, and you're doing something practical about it.
Definitely. I love that. It's hard to be brave sometimes, isn't it?
Oh God, absolutely.
It's easy to ignore it sometimes, but like you say, it just gets a bigger problem. Leaving those letters in the drawer and just shutting the drawer, you think it would get easier. So what do you think is in the future for, the financial crisis, what's going on with mortgage interest rates, or what's your view on what's going to happen over the rest of this year?
So that's a very big question.
I know. And I know you can't get too personal or too specific, but
no, but I think, I don't refer to the cost of living rises as a crisis anymore, because it's been going on quite a long time now. And I think the key for us is to understand that things are probably going to be very challenging for a lot of people for quite a long time. And this is like, for want of a better phrase, the new normal, which is a really rubbish thing to say, I know, but I just think that,
when it's honest, and I appreciate honesty, right? I'd rather say it how it is and lie to people. Oh, it's going to be fine.
Well, God, no, it's not. But I think that the key is that there's a lot of people that are in crisis already. And we need to help those people. But what we also need to do is these new cohorts of people that are suddenly going, oh, this is getting a little bit interesting. We need to share with them where the immediate information and support is. That's really important, because a lot of those people can just sort of go, oh, right, I'll find that out and I can start to deal with that myself. But again, then this is a long, protracted thing that we need to go through. But it starts with educating our young people, giving them the tools and information at an early age to understand what's coming down the tracks in terms of, you know, what's a pay slip, what's tax, what's a loan shark look like, you know, what's a credit card and how much is that going to cost you. So educating our young people is really, really important to sort of ease the sort of peaks and troughs out over the coming years. And, you know, if I knew what mortgage interest rates were going to be like, I'd be a millionaire. So
I know, right? Neither of us are quite there yet. So just talking to, I'd probably say like my average client now. So, you know, there are people who are in crisis. There are people who are worried about their mortgage interest rates. There are, or both. And there are people that are highly, highly wealthy. My clients tend to be people who are unfortunately inherited wealth, usually younger or middle-aged females.
Right.
And they're usually working, got a good career, so maybe having a career break at some point, or wanting to plan for a career break. They're either running very successful businesses and, you know, doing quite well. They can see profits now coming through their business. Or they tend to be usually sort of doing quite a good executive kind of role in maybe like a tech company or sort of senior management. So they might have shares, or they certainly have bonuses, and they're getting pay rises, and they're doing well. So they're not in crisis.
No.
They are thinking about, oh shit, what should I do about my mortgage interest rate? Should I fix 2 years or 5 years? And I did a whole podcast with my mortgage broker. So Bob, if you're listening to this and you haven't listened to that show, you can go back and listen to it. Because this is out after that show. But they are sort of, because of the news and because of what's, you know, this, like you say, this is no longer a crisis, it's like the norm. And what's going on with core inflation at the moment. So not, but just to explain to people, core inflation has recently, has it gone up or slightly stayed the same, whereas actual overall inflation, which is more related to adding on to, I should say, inflation, which also includes household bills and utilities, that has come down. But core inflation has actually, I think, slightly increased over the last quarter. So that's worrying the markets. And, you know, when I look at investing, so that's what people come to me with. They say, okay, I want to plan for the future. I've got this money. What should I do with it? Knowing what you know, and knowing what you know, you've been in this for a long, long time. Where would you say people start?
So I know from a lot of stats and things that we've had is that younger working people only have one bank account. So it's really important that if you are trying to save, you have somewhere else to put the money that you're saving, because if you don't do that, it's very easy to just keep spending and spending and spending. So having a little bit of money put aside for the future is really important. I think budgeting as well, knowing what you've got coming in and going out is really key, especially at the moment, because things, like you just said, things are going up. It's not as easy to plan as it once was, because you don't always know what your bills are going to be every month. So if you're doing, you know, a budget plan every 3 months, just to see where you are spending, generally, can you change that a little bit? Can you free up any money to put to one side for your future? That might be something that people want to think about doing. But then one thing, because you said, you know, a lot of your clients are women, and they are making plans, which is absolutely phenomenal. No, that's great. But one thing that I've learned about in the last sort of couple of years is the impact of the menopause on women's finances and our ability to pay into a pension, do a job. And you know, that we might need to take time off for caring responsibilities for grandchildren, older parents, etc. So throughout our working lives as women, we have so many sort of external factors that can impact our ability to save.
100%, that's without the gap of it, you know, the income gap, having children, you know, costs for childcare.
So, you know, we're moving towards this massive gender pension pay gap, as well as the gender pay gap. So I do a lot of sessions around money and menopause, and how that sort of can really mess up your pension provision if you're feeling really rubbish and you're not able to have a conversation about it, and you don't know why you're feeling rubbish, and you think, I can't do my job anymore, I'm just going to sack it off. So a raising awareness of that is really important. So when financial advisors are having conversations with younger people, it might be a good thing to say, oh, well, it's not necessarily saying this is going to happen to you, but you need to think about perhaps bumps in the road that might impact your ability to earn and save.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've not thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Not thought about it like that. What would you say to somebody that was able, in terms of, let's just say, their bills are covered, they're paying into their pension through work, but they're only doing like, they're doing 3% and the employer's doing 5%. And they have got spare money each month, which they could consider investing. What would you be saying to them? I know you're not an advisor, but I'm just trying to pick information from your brain.
So what would I be saying to them? Well, I'd be saying, what's important to you for your future. Can you afford to go on holiday next year, or are you going to put it on your credit card? You might want to make a choice around that. But I would really recommend people do try and take some financial advice. However, that is really hard at the moment because there's not a lot of advisors taking on new clients. There's not a lot of advisors that want to deal with people that have only got a spare bit, a bit of money, big chunks of money.
Why do you think that is? I know why it is, and I've got a lot to say about that. I could do a rant, but why do you think that that's happened? We're in that situation.
I don't know if I could comment on that, but from a personal experience, I used to run a team of financial advisors in a major high street bank. Those financial advisors disappeared, and they were the ones that sort of talked to people with the lower end incomes, lower levels of savings and stuff. And you could advise people on what to do and have a really good conversation about that. I think there's that element missing now. And it goes back to what you were saying about money coaches and money trainers and stuff. There's a little bit of a gap for
general everybody.
General people that want to do something, but don't know where to start, and the doors being closed in a lot of places around that as well. So
100%. And I mean, my personal opinion is the reason we're in this situation is because of and I'm not blaming financial advisors or blaming financial advisor companies or firms, but we are heavily regulated. There's a lot of costs involved with running our business. Having said that, there is a marketing requirement for high net worth, because let's face it, more money, more problems, more tax, there's more justification for charging a fee. However, I don't believe that we should then exclude people that don't have enough money. There is a gap of people who still have spare money. They can actually start investing, but they don't know how. So, like, for example, I charge, I think it was $495. I just put it up to $520. And if someone comes to me with, say, 30-40 grand, set them up a pension or an ISA, and I've just charged them that flat fee, and they can go on their way. There's no ongoing. They don't have to keep going. They can come back to me if they've got any questions in the future, but they can continue. The other issue is that it's a generational thing where we're not recruiting. The banks aren't recruiting or training anymore because they've closed all their wealth divisions down. We're now in a situation where you've got those same firms recruiting, but they're not necessarily. It's all there's a mass exodus of the industry because of additional regulation that's coming into place. So this year it's the consumer duty that's coming in. So I have probably 5 emails a week, 2 or 3 phone calls a week. For firms trying to buy my client base. So if you imagine you've been doing I've only been doing it, I've run my business for 10 years, I've been in the industry for 23 years, but my client base I've been only doing for about 6 years. Whereas if you've been in the industry for 20 odd years and that's all you focused on and you built your client base, that would be worth millions now. And let's just say 55 to 60 don't want to bother with consumer duty and all the more regulation that's coming into play, which massively impact these people. They're going to sell. You've got 5 or 6 people ringing you every week asking you for, handing you over millions of pounds. Why would you not cash in and walk away? Don't blame them whatsoever. No. So we're left in a situation where we've got an aging population of financial advisors, no new blood to really come in and fulfill that, and then a massive gap in giving that advice to everyday people. Yeah,
and then that's where, you know, the issue around influencers on TikTok and, you know, younger people getting involved in cryptocurrency because so-and-so says it's a great idea. That's when there's a massive problem there as well, isn't there? So again, it goes back to sort of basic education around finance, about what's what at school or in a, you know, in an environment when people are still young, probably before they go off to uni as well, because then you get in a whole heap of debt just by educating yourself. So it's really it's hard. It's hard to know how to tackle the issue because it is massive, and there's such a gap of, you know, there's a massive group of people that can't get that support through no fault of their own. It's just the way the industry's developed over the last sort of 10 years. And therein lies a bit of an issue, doesn't it? Whilst we're trying, the key for the economy is for people to have their own personal financial resilience. But how do we help them to do that? In a safe way.
And I only see it. I don't at the moment. The only thing I can see as a positive is that standardizing that you mentioned. If I'm honest, because all I see more of, and you even see Facebook ads now, are ambulance chasers, law firms trying to find ways that you can sue your financial advisor. It's like, you know, it's ridiculous. And I hope the regulator will start to do more in terms of coming down on certain people that are not giving guidance, they are giving advice in the online space. So that's my only hope that I can hope for. Well, I've really enjoyed our chat today. Thank you so much for coming on. Would you mind doing me a massive favour and maybe sending me some links to some of the departments that you've mentioned? Because if you go on to maps.org.uk, then it's such a big website. There's so much on there, and I want to make sure that anyone that is listening, or if you know somebody that's struggling right now, send them this podcast, get them to listen to this. Jenny and Maps are there to help. You can't ring Jenny directly, unfortunately. No. There's massive governmental departments that are there to help. You're not on your own. So please share that with people that you think would find it helpful. And I will, in the show notes, also share the link so that people can go and get, whether it's debt advice, you know, there's a lot, all the things that Jenny mentioned there. Any lasting words of tips or wisdom you'd like to share before we close today?
I would like to say #talk money to anybody that you can possibly do that. We have Talk Money Week every November. It's great to get involved with. Lots of help and support out there. So just let's break down those barriers and educate each other around money and pensions.
Brilliant. Absolutely love that. Thank you so much, Jenny, for joining me today.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Accelerate Your Wealth. For further help or to connect with Rebecca directly, please head over to the website www.rebeccarobertson.co.uk, where you can find further information on our planner, book, and how to further maximise your wealth. Our sponsor, Evolution Financial Planning, for regulated advice on pensions, investments, mortgages, insurances on www.evolutionfinancialplanning.co.uk/podcast.